On today's episode of Beyond Resilience, our hosts, Dr. Jamie Renbarger and Catherine Haffey, are exploring the question, I was just diagnosed with cancer. I'm afraid and overwhelmed. Now what?
Hello, Jamie. It's so good to be with you this morning. I love just being together talking about a big topic we've got on tap for you all.
Yes, absolutely. Today, we want to dive right in and talk about what it's like to be diagnosed with cancer and how to navigate some of those early days after diagnosis. So let's jump in. So, Catherine, I wonder to start off with, you have had this experience of being diagnosed with breast cancer. Wondering if we can start with just hearing a little bit about your journey and about what it was like to be diagnosed, and go from there.
Absolutely, I'd be happy to share. So I'll never forget, it was in May 2011, and I think some of us kind of know when there's something not quite right, but I don't think anybody is truly prepared to hear the words, you have cancer. That diagnosis is maybe for somebody else, but not for me. And so when I actually heard that, and of all people who told me that was my own dad, and he read the MRI report. So it wasn't even my doctor, and I'm literally jumping right in the deep end with this one. It caught me by shock and surprise, and I had my family. I was driving back from a tournament. I remember a tennis tournament that my kids played in, and I got the news on a cell phone from my dad, who happened to be a physician, a retired physician, and he had got his hands on the MRI report and told me, and then I was able to talk to my husband and my children, which again will be another conversation that we will have. But I don't think you're prepared. I don't think anybody is prepared for this. And I was in really good shape. I was a runner, and I ate what I thought was well, and we were athletes. So you know what? At the end of the day, cancer doesn't discriminate against anybody, no matter how healthy you think you are. I just think it's just good to know the information that we will discuss eventually about lifestyle factors that we can actually modify. But for today, really focusing on that diagnosis and what to do with that overwhelm and fear, because it is a lot. It's a stigma now. Your life has changed.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I'm imagining you driving in your car, and just the whole spectrum of things that you were feeling. I'm curious if you can share just a little bit more about what that was like for you.
Absolutely. I think you go through. I was sad, actually. I was more sad not for me. I was sad for my family. And immediately, of course, you equate cancer with death, which is not the case at all. But that's where our minds tend to go to. And so I was just really sad, and not so much angry, but sad. Although anger is a very common response to cancer, resentment and shame, all that is super common. And it's not that we beat ourselves up for feeling that way. It's just how the dice rolls, and you feel that way, and you should. I just honored those feelings, but for me it was sadness. I think, and then I wanted to learn, once it kind of sunk in that okay, now I have cancer, and it took some time to really just let that sink in. And have that target on my back for that I was going to have to, okay, I'm like sick and I need to get better, and I need to devote myself to this health plan, this health journey that I was going to be on, even though I felt perfectly fine, right? And it happens many times. You're feeling healthy, you're feeling good, and all of a sudden you get diagnosed with cancer. Like, what? Like, where did this come from? How did this happen?
Yeah.
But it's something that once you get diagnosed, you must absolutely attend to, and you've got to give it your full attention to.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, thank you so much for sharing that. I have sat with, as an oncologist, have sat with many people in sharing difficult news. And you bring up a really important point, and that is that so often when people hear the words "you have cancer," they immediately jump to, "Oh my gosh, this is the end," right? The cancer equals death for so many people, and the reality is that there are such amazing treatments out there, and in fact, cancer doesn't equal death for the majority of people who are diagnosed. There are very, very effective treatments, and at the same time, being diagnosed does in some ways represent the end of life before cancer, right? So the end of maybe a plan or vision or way that you as a human being saw your life. And I'm wondering if that resonates with you at all, Catherine.
It does, and I think we kind of lose trust in our bodies because it's like, well, what happened? You let me down. Like, how can this possibly happen? Especially if you're health conscious or even somewhat health conscious, or you try to live a healthier life, you feel like you're covered. You do all the things you're supposed to do, and yet a diagnosis like this happens to fall right on your face.
Absolutely.
So I think that's super common, and you've got to honor all those emotions that come up with that. And then it's time to act and put your team together and move forward.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I want to move on here in a minute to talking about, some of those early conversations and building your care team. And I want to highlight one thing that you said that I think is so, so important. And that is that there is this kind of dichotomy that you experience in being diagnosed with cancer and going through this cancer journey. And that is experiencing from day to day and moment to moment a whole variety of different feelings. And it's so incredibly important to attend to those and to really allow yourself to have that experience and to not shove those down or swallow those down at all times. And at the same time, there are those moments where you got to get stuff done. You need to attend to the disease itself. And so it is this balance of attending to your emotions and your feelings and allowing yourself to really work through some of that. And we'll spend a little time in this episode and then much more time in future episodes talking some about that. And attending to taking care of your physical health and this disease that you now have in your path to take care of. So Catherine, as you think about some of the especially early and throughout your journey more pivotal conversations that you had, I'm wondering if you can talk a little bit to how you managed this feeling of overwhelm and at the same time learning so much and understanding and retaining the things that you needed to learn and do to actually face cancer.
Absolutely. I think when you first get diagnosed, you are run through a pretty rigid schedule of testing. So at least in my case, once you find out that, okay, you have cancer, they want to move on this pretty much right away. So you'll be, I was given my treatment plan, and then I was led through a whole schedule of maybe 2 or 3 weeks of intense testing to make sure what I had is what I had based on the readings, and then how extensive, that's always a fun one to go through, how extensive your cancer is. And you're just praying, through basically a PET scan that it has not gone anywhere else, that they have not detected in your body. And I was scared, to be honest. I had my college roommate call me when I was sitting in the weight room to go in to get my PET scan. I was by myself because it just happened to be that way. And I was scared. But on the other hand, it's what are you going to do with that fear? You can rest on two different questions that cancer really revealed to me is, why did I get this? Or what am I going to do now about this? And you stew in that why, but you're not going to come up on the other side of this very well. It's not going to make you feel very well. You're just going to get angry, and those emotions are just going to run itself all over again. And that's fine. You need to spend time in that place, but then at some point, you need to roll up your sleeves and say, okay, what am I going to do about this? And it kind of leads itself naturally because in given all this tight scheduling of tests to find out exactly what you have, where it is in your body, and to kind of hone down on a more pinpointing your treatment plan, that testing is scary. And I would totally recommend trying to bring somebody, an advocate with you, during that testing period to find out, okay, now we've got all the evidence back, we've got all the results back, and now this is what we're going to do with you. And I think that's super important, to kind of figure out, okay, I'm going to go through this testing, and you can ask your doctor lots of questions, exactly what does that entail? What kind of tests am I going to have to go through? And then from there, it's, I'm going to have an advocate with me, if you can. That's what I would recommend. And then sitting down again with your oncologist, getting a treatment plan together, and rolling up your sleeves and think, okay, so now kind of the ball is in my court. What am I going to do with this? How am I going to be a feather in the wind kind of moving, or am I going to prepare myself mentally for the biggest fight in my life that I've ever been through and figure out how am I going to navigate through this?
Yeah. So important, right? What I hear you saying is, how am I going to show up?
Yeah,
right.
Exactly.
And what is my approach going to be?
Right.
I would imagine that in some ways, while it sounds like you, and I know you this to be true because I know you, you're very optimistic. Go get it. Like I'm going to fight. I'm going to do this. And I would imagine that there were some moments along the way where that wasn't so easy.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I want to take a moment to dive into your support system in some of the, particularly in around those early days, and for you, who were the people who sat with you, and how did you navigate some of those early conversations with your support system?
Absolutely. And it's so important to have maybe a better support system than what I had. I was pretty bare bones because I had just moved to this new city, and I couldn't have my friends fly down to kind of hold my hand through this. So a lot of phone calls, but God love my mom. She was awesome. She went with me to a lot of the infusion treatments, and we tried to make it as light as we possibly could. And it really did add an element of fun to this. I was able to spend some quality time with my mom that I really hadn't before because I had her locked in with me, and we would have funny stories that we would reminisce about, or a woman from a church made me a prayer shawl, so I took that to every infusion with me, and we made it as good of an experience as we possibly could. And then I did have cards and phone calls and things like that. That was even before texting was really big. So, but those were always so wonderful to get. And my sisters would fly down, and we'd have special dinners together. So, time becomes precious. I think that's what cancer has taught me. Time has become so precious of a commodity, and it's gone just like that. So to make the most of our time here, it really came very much aware to the front of my brain of like every minute of my day, I wanted to be as intentional as I could, and to try to, there's nothing I could do about going to the chemo centers. There's nothing I do about coming into an infusion room I could not avoid it. And so how was I going to face that? Something that I had to do every day. How was I going to face that and face it with some type of lightness and, oh, can we even get joy out of this? I mean, is it even possible? And yes, it is if you structure it right and you have, some support.
Yeah, so important. I love hearing about all the members of your family and your friends and how they were able to provide love and support for you, and in a whole variety of different ways. And so we are going to spend some time in a future episode talking more about specific ways that family and friends can provide support. And I really see them as part of this care team that you put together.
Yes.
Right? That is
Yes.
so integral to your entire cancer journey. So that includes friends and family members and support they provide, as well as folks on the healthcare side. So I wonder if we can take a minute to talk a little bit about the healthcare side of your care team and how you went about building that and who was a part of that for you.
Absolutely. This is such an important piece. You need to really put together a healthcare team that's going to be your advocate. It's going to be your partner, your collaborator in your health. So that means you need to be comfortable with them. And that may take some time, some effort for you to answer questions that you have and how those responses are interpreted to you and your comfort level is really super important. So you may run through 2 or 3 or 4 conversations even. One of my friends, I think, went through 5 different types of interviews with a breast care surgeon and before she found the right one. And that's okay. It's really, really important that you put together a team that you can be comfortable with, that talks to you, not down on you, that explains exactly and takes the time to do this, that what you're going to be doing and explains your diagnosis and what does that mean, and then to have an amazing treatment plan that makes you feel like, okay, I can do this. Like I can do this with my partners, with my collaborators. But the whole key is really taking that time to interview those doctors and making that important, making that this is about your health. This is not about pleasing somebody else. This is about your health and being that best advocate. And if you're not comfortable being an advocate, bring someone along with you who would very much advocate for you.
Yeah. So such important points that you're bringing up here. This is your journey, right? As someone impacted by cancer, this is your journey. And you, while certainly it can feel at times like things are overwhelming and out of control, you have autonomy and you have control
Yes.
Over how you choose not only to show up, but to move forward through your cancer treatment and after treatment, and building a care team that you're comfortable with, and that you feel a sense of safety and security and trust in, is incredibly, incredibly important. The reality is there are often different options for a treatment approach, and having an understanding of what those options are and the pros and cons of those and how those best fit with you and your life is an incredibly important part of the entire cancer journey. And then building a team of healthcare professionals, including oncologists and surgeons, sometimes radiation oncologists, nurse navigators and social workers and others, who are a good fit for you, who, as Catherine said, who listen to you, who talk with you and not down to you. It is so incredibly important. And as you said, Catherine, that might be the very first oncologist or very first person that you talk to, and it might take a little while to find the person who you feel like is the best fit for you. And I just want to highlight from my perspective as a healthcare professional, the importance of asking for and getting second opinions and third opinions and whatever it takes. Again, this is your journey, and it's something that you need to feel good about how you're going into it, or as good as possible about how you're going into it. And I really want to highlight that if you're seeing a physician and you ask for a second opinion, and they're uncomfortable with that, or they discourage you from that in any way, that's a red flag.
Absolutely.
Right? You need to have the opportunity to talk with professionals and to make sure that the team that you have is a good fit for you.
Absolutely. Such a good point.
That's
so true.
It can be challenging because, as you said,
Yeah.
there is some urgency, right? Once
Right.
it's like, okay, we need to get all the information together, have the data, know what the treatment is, and get moving.
Yes.
Right. And so you're balancing that with making sure that that the care team that you have is right for you.
Yeah, and I think, Jamie, you made a really good point about, you talk to two different oncologists. They may have two totally different treatment plan ideas for you. So, if you're not really sure which one you should do, talk to another one. Make sure that, and if that third one reinstates a treatment plan that makes a little bit more sense to you, that resonates more, then you kind of have that safety, security feeling in your heart, like, okay, I'm going to go with this guy. Like, I feel comfortable with this treatment plan and what he's proposing for me. And if two or more are in that camp, kind of suggesting the same thing, that maybe this is something that I should consider.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And to that end, it's also perfectly reasonable and appropriate to sit down with maybe a physician who you feel particularly comfortable with, or who you're kind of leaning toward, and lay out the options. What are all the options, and why does he or she feel like this is the best one, or what's their rationale for recommending what they're recommending? That's all fair game and all an important part of again, you feeling like you're moving forward with a team and a treatment plan that is the right fit for you.
Absolutely.
So,
yes.
Yeah.
Well said.
Excellent.
Yeah.
So, if it's okay, I'd like to take a moment to go back and talk about some of those early conversations that you had when you were newly diagnosed, Catherine, and specifically some of the things that you were feeling and experiencing during that time, and how you managed some of that for yourself.
Yeah, that's a great question, Jamie. I think, we have to remember that we have choices in our life. We have choices that affect how we think, and then what we're going to do with those thoughts. And we can really use cancer as a way to dive deep in ourselves and try to ask ourselves these questions, and not just let us be the victim of this diagnosis and our rampant thoughts, which can go in every which direction. So to understand that maybe it's time for me to take control of some of these thoughts that are coming through my head, and figuring out which one I want to embrace that's going to be the healthiest for me. So I just remember really trying to dive deep into that and gain some control, gain some clarity on some of these things. And I think what really worked was trying to have a sense of gratitude. And so keeping a gratitude journal, and I did that, and I would write down 3 things, and it really was making a difference. Some days were harder than others, but it really did make a difference on how I was able to cope through those hard days. And of course, the easy days were even better, because I was able to say, wow, I had the most beautiful sunrise this morning, or we went to the beach and we witnessed the most beautiful sunset. It was more beautiful than I ever remember. So having that sense of gratitude, and really trying to figure out, okay, I have a choice on how I'm going to embark upon this journey. I can do it where I'm just kicking and scratching and biting the whole way, or I can do it with the sense of a reset, a reset button that I can push and really think, okay, I'm going to get myself healthier here. I'm going to roll up my sleeves. I'm going to do this. I'm going to figure out how I'm going to do this, and putting together the best teams of people around you, personal teams and professional medical teams is the first step. But then you've got to have some ownership with this too, as a patient. And you've got a lot of people that have got your back, which is awesome. But then for you to put your best foot forward and be able to, and if you're not able to do that, then to get around somebody that can help you get in that space, that mental space of empowerment and hope, and don't surround yourself with negative people. And if you have a group of friends that, well, I can't believe this happened to you, you got to protect yourself. Limit those conversations of why, because we don't really want to stew in that space too long. We really kind of want to keep moving forward. Like, okay, I've got this, and this is what I'm going to be doing, and I know I can do this. It takes work, honestly.
Yeah, definitely. And I so love hearing you kind of talk through all of that and your perspective at this point. And just the way that you stepped into and walked through your journey with cancer with such a positive, gracious attitude, I think is really what we want to put out to everybody listening, right? And that is that yeah, cancer sucks. There are a lot of bad things about it, and nobody wants it. And when you're in that point, really, again, allowing yourself time to feel the anger and the sadness and the fear, and to then step up and say, okay, I can do this, because you can. And that's really our message is one of hope. And we want to, through each episode of this Beyond Resilience podcast, take time to dive into very specific things that you can do to support yourself. Before we move on, I just want to take a moment, Catherine, because I know, sitting from the oncologist side, the sense of overwhelm and sometimes panic that people experience when they are really initially hearing those words, "You have cancer." And so I love where you went with it. And I know that it's not so easy. And so I'm wondering if you'd be willing to talk just for a moment about what some of those early feelings were like and how you managed that to really move yourself into this place of such great optimism and power.
Yeah, that's a great point, Jamie. I think honestly, it is a journey. So there's never really a point that you get to it and you're safe. You're done. It is a constant struggle, challenge, blessing that will, at the other side, make you stronger, because what doesn't kill us makes us stronger. And so if you think about, we are exercising those muscles of inner strength, of mindfulness, of being our own best advocate to the extreme in a race we really haven't prepared for. And we're not in very good shape for it, but yet we're kind of forced to run it. And so it's a daily refreshing, renewing, recharging, and that's why we can't do this ourselves. We need to have an advocate on those tough days to remind us that we have more blessings maybe than we tend to focus on, and when we start doing those positive affirmations and we do them over and over again, well, what became kind of lies initially at first become truths, and they become actually who we are, like part of us. Like, we are courageous, we are kind, we are loved, we are supported, we are brave. And it's really important to write those things down, to read them out loud, to have a friend, hey, remember that you are a fighter, you are a warrior, you are strong, you are supported, you are loved. And it gets easier. It does get easier with each, because those muscles are getting strengthened right in that fight, so that it just becomes easier. And we believe what we're saying now.
Yeah. So important. So important to really, again, show up in your power, right? And with strength and with support, and to be able to accept support. While I think we both recognize that hearing the word cancer, getting that new diagnosis can be really scary and overwhelming.
Oh, for sure.
And allowing yourself to accept the support and to step into the journey with each day as intentionally and as optimistically as positive, or as possible, right?
Yes.
And so yeah, it's not easy.
No.
And we're here. We're here to provide information and support, and we certainly both have our perspectives on what we think is important and what how we know to best support you and to provide information to you. And we need your feedback. We want to know from you, because we're here for you.
Right.
So please comment on Instagram, and provide feedback as much as possible. We want to know, because we want to do the best possible job we can to meet your needs.
We do.
So
we want to have relationships with you guys and,
yes,
and our listener, and have engagement, true engagement, and be able to help you as much as we can. So that requires, if you have comments or concerns, questions, please don't hesitate. Field them our way.
Yes. All right. Before we wrap up, anything else you want to add?
I think we covered a lot of it. I think the next topic can be, what to do, how to tell your friends and family, because that's kind of a big one. Or coworkers, that's a biggie.
Yes, definitely. So many important messages to get out there. Mm-hmm. So know that we'll be back with more.
Yes.
And in the meantime, thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you, Liz. Yeah.
And
so awesome.
More soon.
Thank you.
This podcast is here to support you. If you liked it, please rate, review, follow, and share, since that's the best way to grow a community together. Please leave us comments and feedback. We're here to help.